Hello? Yeah. Thank you for attending the 11 o'clock session. My name is Poorna, and I'm going to be talking about starting a security program that thrills and spills. We are all here on a Sunday because we all want to do better at security. Some of us aspire to build that application security program, manage that product security program, build the security program for a company. And back in November 2015, I got that dream opportunity. The dream opportunity to build the security program for a healthcare company which had, at that point, no users, not a product market fit. And we didn't really have any customers paying us for anything, but we wanted to start off foundationally with a solid security program. While we are building those skills for that aspirational opportunity, we are thinking of technology skills, we are thinking policy frameworks, we are thinking trainings and certifications, we are preparing for project management skills, team leadership skills, hiring, firing, and whatnot. And in the past year or two, what I learned was that all those skills are great. They got me the opportunity. That's why I got into the door. And once I got into that opportunity, it was super thrilling to say, look, I'm going to be building this foundational security program, but the spills came in when I was unable to do so in certain areas where it was for non-technical reasons. The skills give us the confidence to go do something, but then if we are stuck on how to get that done. And in this talk, I'm discussing the scenario of where I realized that the emotional intelligence piece or emotional quotient for somebody who has this responsibility is at least as important, if not more, than the skills themselves. Because otherwise, the skills that we build are marginalized if we are not able to run through the program with an even keel of mind. So by way of introductions, I have been building skills all along. I have a master's in computer security from UCSD. I was a software engineer for almost 9-10 years. If you used Netflix on Apple TV, Sony, any of those devices, I built that. Then I managed the product security and the application security team at Netflix. I built security products for Netflix. I was trying to, at the same time, build my own technology company. I gave it a shot for about 3 years. And in November 2015, when the Lira Health opportunity showed up, that's when I pivoted to working on that one own single-focused effort. I became the first security engineer / CISO at Lira Health. What do we do at Lira Health? We provide a comprehensive behavioral healthcare solution for employees and family members of the companies that work with us. We have everything, the entire gamut from self-care apps that use computer-based cognitive behavioral therapy so that people can help themselves, CCBT, as it's known in the psychology world, through how you deal with physical therapy. You have a limited set of coaching sessions, and then you're self-serve. So we have that for behavioral therapy. We have therapists who work on-site and near-site. So we have clinics at the companies that we work with where employees can just walk up to those clinics. And we also have psychotherapists on our board where we can prescribe medicine. So end-to-end behavioral healthcare, that's what Lira Health does. So this is where a wise man named Drake would say, starting from the bottom, now we're here. Starting from the bottom, now my whole functioning team is here. Starting from the bottom, now we're here. So 2018, it is thrilling to be here for me at Lira Health, because we achieved, in the first year of my joining the company, we achieved high trust compliance. And high trust, I'll talk more about that later, but it was great because the entire company rallied to get there. We have a lot of customers who ask us for stringent requirements, and some of them are probably in the audience, some of them are potential customers in the audience whose InfoSec team has assessed us and has helped us become stronger based on their feedback. The entire company rallies together when we have annual compliance efforts, disaster recovery exercises, external red team exercises. We all work coherently, pulling the company in the same direction. And the security techniques are used not just to defend, but to creatively solve problems. And I'll give more examples of that as well. And when they occur, security incidents are immediately reported, broadly discussed, and we do postmortems and then prevent future recurrence in a without blame or shame fashion. So it feels great to be there. In 2018, back in 2015, when I was starting at the bottom, I wasn't sure how to go about it. I knew, so based on my skills were telling me, am I going to start with a risk assessment and then a threat modeling exercise, or should I do start with a compliance program first, take action with like SDLC, software development lifecycle, figure out shift left and DevSecOps, best practices like we have OWASP top 10, SANS 20, FTC has the start with security program. All those skills are coming to me left and right. And then I realized that I'm one person, number one security engineer. How much of this can I do by myself? And when you think about SDLC and implementing find-seg bugs and failing the build when your security issues show up, the engineers are not really incentivized to do that because they are measured on did you get that feature out in this sprint? Did you get that experience working there? And they don't necessarily need to do my find-seg bugs. The product security team is everything I ask them in terms of changing the password strength or MFA or anything would be basically a thing that would create issues with their funnel, right? Like their registration funnels and their user experience funnels will get a drop when they implement security features. The data science team is always hungry for more data. I have my network segregation diagrams. I have my data classification. I have the whole, how we will manage all these different types of data. And the data science team is all about the only privilege and access they want is all privilege, all access, so that they can run all their machine learning algorithms on as much data as they can to get to those insights. So the incentives are not aligned. Right? The executive members are still trying to get that round of funding or are doing their first customer pitches or they're trying to get those customer success programs going. They don't really care about my, let's do that incident response tabletop exercises, what if scenarios, because they're like, do you know how drastic this is? This what if scenario is that my company might not survive. So your what if scenario of the tabletop exercise is less priority, right? How do we rally company resources to work on penetration tests? And what would encourage employees to report issues? Because that's not what they're used to. If you report something where you did something wrong, you're going to get punished. That's the only thing they know. So I had to do a lot of introspection. I had the exclusive privilege and responsibility to build this program, and I knew what I wanted to do because my skills taught me that. I was contemplating on how. So the purpose of why did I take this, why am I doing this, was super important. So most of us take the role because either there's a title or a pay raise or improves our commute, gives us different experiences like trails that we haven't blazed. So I had done product security and application security for Netflix. I had the ability to learn all the domains. And so that would be exciting. And then the mission of the company itself. And to me, what it boiled down to was the mission of the company, transform behavioral healthcare via technology with a human touch. That was so appealing to me that the rest of it didn't matter. And I think that's where being purposeful, I drew a lot of strength. I lost my fear of how I'm going to approach somebody to ask for help. And it became very powerful. And I also, looking back even 2 years later, I feel like if I hadn't had that sense of purpose, I would get burned out very quickly. If I wasn't creatively and passionately able to participate, I would not be able to get Lira Health where we are. So like I needed my purpose, the company needed a call to action. Right? Why would the company do a bunch of small things? So I needed a big banner, this is what we're going to get done, and this is when we're going to do it by. And for that, I got the business team and executive team excited about getting Lira Health High Trust certified in 2016. 1 year, we're going to spend time on that high trust, which is a prescriptive program, which basically allows you to be your company to be NIST, ISO, HIPAA, COBIT, all these compliance rules. They aggregate that and then prescribe what you need to do. So we took over that. It was great because the company, like the executives and business team, was like excited because the sales would be very easy with high trust in there. There would be trust from the customers who would want to give their employee information to us, so that we can provide them the care. And with that, the entire company was like, okay, fine, let's get this done in 2016. So I took over all the SaaS accounts we had, all the Google, AWS, GitHub, Zendesk, Salesforce, whatever you have, minimum privilege, minimum required access, and least privilege principles. Started doing, I didn't know anything about management of Macs using Jamf, but I took a training in Jamf. I went about taking everybody's machine and hard disk encryption, application firewall turning on, screensaver, password management, and then took over all the mobile devices that would ever want access to Lira Health. And if you install this Google MDM profile, then you'll get access. Set up, password requirements, two-factor, and all that stuff. And it's great because high trust gave us 19 domains on which we would execute these things. And it was like a playbook. We knew when we would get it by, and everybody was rallying. Again, this is only 90% of the time. There's less than 10% of the set of people or technologies or things that will not go your way, right? So there were some people in the employee population who would be like, going 100% to the cloud, in no healthcare company that I have worked at, that was possible. It's not something we would recommend. We want our data under our noses and all that. So you have those arguments through, why would I want to turn on this 8-character passcode on my mobile device? That's too much. I don't so I'm you either have access to Lira Health data with all these security controls, which is the passcode for your phone, no jailbroken devices and all that, or you don't, and you choose, right? So you had to have flexible policies where you either opt in or opt out. But if you want access, same thing for the devices. We said, we're gonna give you these devices with the expectation that we will turn it around at the end of 1 year. We will give you a different device. So use this device as if it's on lease. And if you store information, that is fine, but it needs to be backed up to Google Drive. We have unlimited Google Drive storage space. If you're a coder, everything is backed up to GitHub, because at the end of the year, we'll give you a month notice, and then we'll swap it out. It may not be a new device, but what this does is it gives us the disaster recovery and business continuity leverage, because there's nothing on the devices or data that will be lost if ever if we are in a situation where we need to get their devices back. Similarly, you can store as much of your personal pictures on there, but know that if you lose that device, I'm going to remotely wipe your device and be responsible for it, because I'm not going to stop you from storing your personal pictures. But in the case of a scenario where we have to wipe the machine, Lira Health data is important for me. Your pictures will be second. And so with that, the freedom and responsibility bars have been established. And my screensaver kicked in. So having a purpose for myself was great. Having a call to action for the company was great. And then as I started to implement this call to action, the emotional journey that I went through was very fruitful for me personally, because I needed to understand all my emotional triggers, because there would be a lot of pushback from people who would be like, I don't know that I want to, I don't want to swap out my machine at the end of the year, or I don't feel comfortable going 100% to the cloud. And how do I answer those things because I, as the first security engineer, I just don't represent the security engineering. I represent the security culture for the company. I needed to have an emotional balance. So we all have these, right? Not all of these thinking traps apply to all of us, but most of these apply to most of us. We all have those should statements. Like I went in with like everything should be two-factor. If it has that option, it has to be two-factor. You cannot have shared accounts. And like, well, SurveyMonkey account costs $2,500. If you don't have shared accounts, you're going to have how many individual accounts per person in your company. So all those are context-based, right? It has to be taken with a grain of like, it's not all black or white. It is gray, and the emotional maturity that I needed. So personally, I'm always on a performance improvement plan. If I missed a note here, I'm going to be like, why did I miss that? And like my wife is on a performance improvement plan. My daughter, 3-year-old daughter, is on a PIP. So every coworker is on a PIP. The world is on a PIP, in my opinion. And so those are my thinking traps, right? Initially I started with like, you are either with me or you're against me. And that is not going to go great if you are also representing how this company should operate in terms of security. So there was a lot of learning in there, but it was great because for whatever I think my 3-year-old is a 3-year-old, she will grow up and mature, and so did I, in terms of like understanding everybody has a perspective, and if you answer it differently or based on what they are a product of their life's experience, if you explain it differently, things work out in the end. At the end of the day, I'm running with the baton to implement HITRUST in 2016, so I did it. So the first two things I talked about, which is purpose and self-awareness, were internal looking. The next one I'm going to talk about, communication, is external looking. And like communication to others has to reinforce the security culture of the company. And so there are a lot of previous talks and articles about how great communication skills, how to build great communication skills. There's like, you have to be concise and clear in your ask. Sometimes you have to be assertive, but other times you can be flexible based on the context. Always resolve conflicts and prioritize things. All this is great, right? There's no argument against that. But what I found very useful was, if we wanted to have a shared responsibility, then we needed to communicate as a company with shared values. So what I found useful, two key values that I found useful for Lira Health was framing every discussion in terms of user privacy and business value. So the example of like the product team not wanting to implement email validation. So I had to frame it in user privacy, saying if somebody fat fingers an email, their argument was, we don't want to implement email validation because that requires a click into somebody's email, and then like they have to go from the app to their email, click on that link, come back into the app, and we lose, there's a drop off in the funnel. Like that's fine, but in the case that they enter the wrong email, at best it bounces, and at worst it goes to a legitimate other person and we might be sending PHI, being a mental health care company. And when you send PHI to the wrong person, that is disclosure, we have to do a breach response and talk to that user and talk to the customer whose employee's information was disclosed and fess up to this incident. And that's a tall order. Would you want to do that? How much of that is, like, that user privacy is going to cost us so much in terms of business, so let's just implement email validation. So we did implement email validation. Right? The example of like picking HITRUST as the call to action was again business driven, because the business, like, we are able to talk to our customers with giving them the confidence that a third party has worked with us to make sure that we are HITRUST certified and we qualify for all these third party assessments. And then some tactics in communication. What we learned was that if you send an email out and they don't respond, that's not because they're ignoring you or they hate you, or if you file a Jira ticket and nobody responds, or you send them a Slack message and they didn't respond. It's like some microcultures only look at certain things, some employees only look at certain communication channels. So just the idea is to communicate broadly and make sure that you're communicating on all channels. The other thing was, security is only known when people hear about security only when there is an incident. And so the idea was to communicate more when there were wins. So for example, when that Google Docs phishing scam was happening, I sent out a note saying, you know why we are not impacted by this? Because of this setting, configuration setting, that prevents us from doing certain things in other places. But in these scenarios, it was great for us because we didn't get phished. We weren't impacted. Sometimes when you really want that security question asked, plant them. I plant them. I ask like friends, and like I also do like raffles on a Slack channel where I say, if whoever gets this question in this all hands is going to get a Phil's coffee. So there's like so many people competing to ask security questions. It's great. And what brought, well, I welled up when a member of the clinical team asked me without any incentives. She asked me about like what meltdown was and what we were doing to prevent it. And I was like, we have achieved it. When a clinical team member is asking me security questions, we got there. Right? And when I go back from conferences, I take all the goodies, and I like, so we are not a security company, but there are all these security company stickers on our company laptops. It's amazing. Because I feel like they are more aware. So the last attribute I wanted to talk about was presence. And we demonstrate presence in a way that we don't want to say the security team only found out later. We want to demonstrate presence in a way that security team is just a part of every function of the company. And there's this might be a little controversial, where like working remotely in security, like especially if you're a first security engineer, it may or may not work. There's the concept like, it'll work for like, oh, Comcast is doing my internet at the new building, I need to be away for 4 hours, or like I'm going to work from home 1 day a week, but if you're not there, it's like out of sight, out of mind. People want to approach you and have those impromptu conversations where they want to ask those questions. If we are not available, they will either do the wrong thing or they will not do anything. And if they do the wrong thing, that's bad for security. If they do the wrong thing, that's bad for the company. Otherwise, it's bad for us. What I tended to do was sit by the coffee station, sit by the lunch table, and like have people come in and have those random questions answered, or just chat, because you learn so much about other products, other things that the functions in the company are working. That was my window into what they were doing. It was every day, lots of decisions are being made, and I felt like I was being a part of it by being present physically. The next aspect of it is participating, right? Like, I attend, like, again, this might not be scalable as you grow bigger. Like this, again, the thrill of what I'm doing was that it's a small company, 60 people with all the teams included. So I'm able to participate in the product planning meeting. I'm able to participate in the engineering sprint meetings. I'm able to, even when we onboard any vendor, like I'm involved right from day one. And when the company goals are being formed for every month, we have like top 5 goals. We get in a couple of security goals. For example, when we have the third-party pen test, we say our monthly goal for this month is like we're gonna, go through the code again, make sure we have run find sec bugs, all that stuff. Make sure we have no credentials in there. I go to the customer call supporting team and like, let's go through your scripts and make sure that there are no, and then practice those scripts so that there are no social engineering attacks possible. And then we do our third-party pen tests, or red team tests, where like every function is pretty much exposed to an attack. So that was one monthly goal. We had another goal where this was driven by the SLA for the company. Like we have a 99.9% SLA, which means at most 1 minute, 26 seconds of downtime, or 43 minutes for the month. So we were able to do a security, like we went ahead and did a disaster recovery exercise where we said, here are all the dependency graphs. Let's test every function that exists in our system. Let's go through a slight flavor of chaos engineering that Netflix does, where we take down a function and see what else gets impacted and what the downtime is. And the output of this exercise for that month was we got all our disaster recovery automated. in that all the alerts and monitoring is in place, but at the same time, if we were to take our entire infrastructure and relaunch it in another region, we have all those dependencies, all those intricate calls being mapped out and works in a completely different region because we automated that. So the whole infrastructure as code, we implemented that because we had a monthly goal on like meeting the SLA. So keyword, business value drives security initiative. For quarterly goals, right? So we are a mental health company, so there's a lot of stigma associated. So when our customer asks us, like, can you implement SSO with our enterprise SSO vendor, we were like, that might work in other scenarios, but for a mental health company, we would enable rather things like sign in with Google or optional MFA within our profile, because employees potentially don't want to log in with their company's work email into a mental health offering, because they may feel like, oh, I don't know if my employer will find out about what I'm going through, right? So clever ways of getting the security features implemented, like single sign-on via Google, which many people have a Gmail account, so they would be more open to that personal Gmail account versus like a company account, enabling optional MFA so that we give the end user the confidence that, hey, their user privacy is going to be taken care of by to an amount, to a quantity that they feel comfortable with. Was great. Similarly, contribute, right? Presence also means contribute. So, code. If we don't code and contribute, why would anybody listen to our suggestions? So I fixed like I'm going back to my started at the bottom. I fixed 2 classes of like find site bugs issues and went through and told the engineering team, here's how I did it. Can you please take it over? And they were like happy because like they knew what to do. It was bounded, and they were like, let us start it in this sprint. And they went ahead and implemented find site bugs, and they failed the build. At the end of within a sprint, they got all the other warnings and errors. Similarly, I wanted to do application layer encryption per customer so that we reduce the risk. So imagine if like our company got attacked and like all the data got taken over. We wanted to de-risk by like really encrypting each customer's information with a separate key and have that application layer protection. And I was looking for an opportune moment, and turns out there was one important health plan that we wanted to integrate with, and they said we want a hosted environment that is dedicated to us. And we were scrambling to figure out that's too much of an ask because we are a SaaS service. We don't want to necessarily create an entire environment for this company. And so we said, can we do application layer encryption with customer-specific key for you guys, so you have the virtual value of as if you had your own environment and your data doesn't commingle with anybody else's. And they were like, that will just work with us. And they got the approval for us. And then I got to do my project, and the engineering team was super happy because they got a prototype built. So again, like when I coded and gave that, the engineering team, the data science team, asked us for code reviews, not because I have a process in place where they have to go through my approval, but they feel like I add value to their work. So that's again a win, a thrill for me. And similarly with hack days, participate. You don't have to just sit in a corner doing looking at our alerts and monitoring. One of the hack days, I learned from the business team that we used to pay our providers with like checks at every so often, and we would mail them for the therapies that they had conducted. So I sat down with an engineer and the business team member, and like we mapped out the processes. We integrated Stripe. We built the initial prototype where payments happen the same day. And you know what? The providers, all the providers that work with Lira Health, they love Lira Health. 95% like rate us higher than anything else that's out there because they get paid the same day or the next day. Because if you're doing work and you're getting paid the same day or next day, it's very important for them. And we happen to have built that hack. So the security team is viewed as a partner in all the functions at Lira Health, and that's again a great move. And it's possible right now again because we are small and I'm able to participate. but you get the drift. Own projects. And so I had to be like, so that I'm partaking in everything. Thanks to the folks at Yelp, they built out ElastAlert. I integrated ElastAlert into our infrastructure, and then I own all auditing, logging, and monitoring. What that gets me is that if for every critical action that happens on the product or any of our SaaS services, I have the who did what and when, and what classified data did it touch, right? And we have that at a level because I own that infrastructure, and everybody uses that to integrate with their product. So again, another place where my presence, I don't mean physical presence, but like being able to contribute, makes everybody see security as a partner, and I'm present in their workflows. The clinical team was working on, like, they really wanted to get this software for longitudinal care, so that like when a care seeker calls us, when they chat with us, and they have this one view of all the interactions that had happened, they really like this vendor, and they wanted to onboard, but that vendor did not have any third-party attestations, or like did not have, like they had a security white paper, and which most vendors are. And if we are in the world of, so the clinical team was, Poorna, please don't fail them. We want them to be approved. And I was like, I'm your partner. I want them to succeed as well. And luckily to us, one of our partner company, or one of our customers, had demonstrated how they value us. When we didn't have any of those certifications, they paid for a pen test. They did a dynamic assessment of us, and they waited for us to fix all those issues for 3 months back in the day, and helped us become a company that can work with them. And so I learned from them, and I did the pay it forward with this company, which is like, I introduced them to the people that they need to talk to for like kicking off their third-party assessments and all that. I went ahead and like said, let me look at your data diagrams. Let me see how you can make your security controls better. And basically did what I would do at our own company. I did it for them just so that they can be a vendor with us, right? And the clinical team is eternally thankful. So anything that happens, they see me as a partner and talk to me about that. So bringing it home, our skills are absolute table stakes. There's no denying that. My thesis is that security cannot be enforced. We can build as many paved paths as we want. We can build as many guardrails as we want. We can make it as easy to be secure by default. But at the end of the day, security is a shared responsibility. And for anybody to share our responsibility, we need to work on shared values, and we need to work on believe in the same purpose, constantly be self-aware, and communicate in terms of like what we all believe will take the company to the next level. And so for me, it is an exhilarating experience, having gone through this, like just exercising my skills, and at the same time emotionally growing up to be able to run this. And thank you for allowing me to share my story.